Hello, welcome to this writing skill video on comma splices. So this is a very common error in student papers where sentences are combined incorrectly. So let's talk about how to do that properly and how to correct that problem if it comes up in your paper. So first of all, what's a comma splice? So just like you see film over there, the word splice is like splicing film together, where you take two pieces and stick them together. But in the case of a comma splice, it hasn't happened correctly. There's two complete sentences, but they're connected only by a comma. There are ways to connect two sentences. That's fine. You can do that, but not with just a comma. Okay, so it's very common to see in student papers where there'll be two complete sentences. Maybe they're related in some way in their ideas, and the student has stuck them together just with a comma, and that's not the proper way to do that. Okay, so it's similar to a fuse sentence, also called a run-on sentence, in that there are two sentences being stuck together. But in the case of the fuse sentence, there's no comma at all. So when there's a comma splice, there are two sentences stuck together with a comma. It's very easy to fix using proper coordinating conjunctions. So we'll talk about how that works. So first, let's look at some examples. She wanted to be popular, comma, she always went along with the crowd. Those are two complete sentences. She wanted to be popular and she always went along with the crowd. Those could both stand on their own. And the writer wanted to put them together and did so just with a comma, which is not correct. Okay, so we'll talk about how to fix that in a minute, but that is not correct. And also, because I am not a good cook, I always eat out. That's a complete sentence. And then it's stuck to another sentence. Sometimes I order delivery and they are stuck together with just a comma. Okay, so that is not correct. And here's another example. When Vesuvius exploded, many people were caught in the cloud of hot ash. Scientists are still studying their remains. Those are two complete sentences, again stuck together with a comma, which is not correct. And money has too much influence in Washington. That's a complete sentence, and it's stuck to another sentence. That is why we need reform. Okay? So let's take a look at how to correct those. There's a few different ways you can correct them, and you can use any one of them depending on the situation, what works stylistically for your paper. So first of all, you can just make them into two separate sentences. That's completely acceptable. So the original was, when Vesuvius exploded, many people were caught in the cloud of hot ash, and comma, scientists are still studying their remains. You could have those as two separate sentences. When Vesuvius exploded, many people were caught in the cloud of hot ash, period. And then have the second sentence. Scientists are still studying their remains, period. Okay? So just separate the two sentences. Or you can make one of the clauses, one of those sentences, dependent. You can turn them into a dependent clause. So here's this example. Money has too much influence in Washington. That is why we need reform. So instead of saying that is why we need reform, you can turn that why we need reform sentence into a dependent clause, like in this sentence. Money has too much influence in Washington, comma, which is why we need reform. The word which now makes it dependent. Okay, so that is fine to connect to the sentence with a comma, now that it's dependent, okay? And you can also add a conjunction. That means something like and, but, so, or, something like that to combine the two sentences. So here's the comma splice. She wanted to be popular. She always went along with the crowd, and it's connected just by that comma. So you can just stick a conjunction in there, and you would keep the comma because you do need the comma with the conjunction. So it would read, she wanted to be popular, comma, so she always went along with the crowd, period. Okay? Now, occasionally you can also add a semicolon. You want to use these very judiciously, though. You don't want to overuse semicolons, and you want to make sure it's justified at that time. You usually only want to do it when you have information that's very, very, very closely related and you want it to just flow right off of the previous piece of information. So here's an example. Money has too much influence in Washington. That is why we need reform. So those are two complete sentences, and they've been connected incorrectly with just a comma. So here it is with the semicolon. Money has too much influence in Washington, semicolon. That is why we need reform. Okay? So as I said, use those very carefully if you use them at all. And definitely don't overuse them. You don't want to connect all compound sentences with a semicolon. That wouldn't work very well. Okay, so if you need more help figuring that out and getting those out of your paper, you can consult the Yavapai College Rough Rider's Guide, Section 9, Chapter 38, or you can work with a tutor in the Yavapai College Learning Center. They can work directly with you on that problem. Just direct them to that particular issue, and they can go sentence by sentence with you and try to figure those out in the context of your paper. Or you can work with your instructor, of course. You can contact them by email, or you can visit them during their office hours, and they can sit down and work with you with that issue. Okay? So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next writing skills video.